Hi, friends. I'm Lo.
And I'm Jay, and this is Jay and Lo's Combos.
You may have been wondering where we've been. Well, we've been behind the scenes doing some thinking and some planning, and we have a dope season for you ahead. Season three is all about the POV.
That's right, that's right. And if you're wondering what we mean by POV, we mean point of view, y'all, just in case we had some people that might need some clarification. It's point of view, POV. So Lo, I'm excited to be in conversation with you as we relaunch and do a summer season of conversation. What are we talking about today when we talk about POV?
Sorry about the ambulance, but tonight's episode, we are talking about the POV is the evolution of friendship.
Ooh, evolution of friendship. Okay, I love it. My POV, when I heard that, siren in the background, I was like, ooh, come on, real
Yeah, I know.
Chicago.
I was like, kind of went with it, huh?
Yeah, yeah, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. But evolution of friendship, point of view. So what I was thinking about this, and I might have a lot to share, a lot to say about it, but curious to see what are your thoughts? What's your point of view when you think about like that evolution that we're talking about of friendships? What does that mean to you?
I think that as you get older, I think you hold on to more sustainable uh, friendships in a way. Like I don't know where I heard this or where I read this, but it was this idea of like, we as humans, we get dropped into this body of water that we call life, right? And when we're younger, we don't know how to navigate yet. So we're just grabbing onto like, life rafters and floaties and stuff like that. Those are our friends, right? We're just grabbing onto relationships because you're like scared, to navigate through life. And then eventually you get to know more about yourself through experiences. Your friends help you learn some things about yourself. And you start to realize kind of like, all right, like I don't need all these floaties. Like I can kind of do some stuff on my own, and you kind of let those go. And some of them are really toxic, and you're like, why was I even holding on to that floaty? That floaty was bringing me down. And then
Yeah.
some you're like, it's okay, like we had our moment, and it's not that your friendship is necessarily over, but you've grown in different directions, and that's okay.
Mhm.
And then the ones that stick with you are the ones that you love and cherish. I know it's
I'm
like
like, what's popping up? What's popping up over
I
there?
don't know, man. I don't know. But yeah, so sorry about the ambulance. But that's what I think. I
No,
think when you're
hopefully it's
younger,
okay.
you have a lot of friends, you make a lot of friends, you want to have a lot of friends, you want to engage with people, and you kind of tolerate those like friendships that aren't necessarily the greatest. And then as you get older, you start to realize like, okay, I don't need all of that. At least for me. I can't speak for anyone else, but like for me, I don't need to have like 3,000 friends, as long as I've got my set of
Yeah.
like little circle of friends, I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Oh man, like that's real for real. The idea of when I'm thinking about what you're talking about, like the floaties and like all the
Mm-hmm.
friends, like this big network of friends. That's something I definitely have like evolved my like orientation around over time in terms of the exhaustion from that. I found that to be incredibly exhausting around trying to like I have had over time friend groups that were distinctly different than the other. And I don't know what that says about like my, things I can plug into or communities that I can plug into or whatever. But there were a lot of differences in terms of personalities, just orientation to like things people like to do, interests, which made for a fun opportunity for me because I got to do a lot of different things with different people.
Right.
But the sustainability over that over time, like just the actual like physical, technical, like how do I show myself present for everyone always in a consistent way, that was exhausting and I
Yeah.
did not do it well. And I messed it up a lot. And, there were a lot of people that I think were sometimes unintentionally moved to like a back burner type of situation, which was, definitely not the intent, but it just, you can't do everything with everyone always. And so
Right.
it became more of that idea of decision paralysis where there were times where I would be asked to do stuff, and I said, I'm just not going to do anything, because if I don't do anything, no one's going to be, let down, or no one's going to be offended by anything. And so it's just like, I'm not going to do anything. And that was more of the like social aspects of the where I've, seen my like evolution, or how I've seen the friendship dynamics change over time. What would you say? Because I was thinking about in terms of like building and sustaining relationships in relationship to, that's very redundant. So let me change that. What do you think about, what are your thoughts? What's your point of view around how you've seen for yourself or seen for others that you've observed, the sustainability factor, right? So like when you are building a friendship, right? What are the things that you have seen shift and change for you over time? What things do you see that are still there? What would you say about that? That was a lot of language. So just hop in and hop out as you feel.
Well, I think the biggest thing when you said change, a lot of people, again, we're not in our 20s, we're nearing our 40s. I was gonna say 30s. I'm like, damn, we're not even like.
Hold on. No, you're right. I'm like, yes. Come on.
So like a lot of my friends, my close friends are parents now. A lot of them have kids. So I will say that was a big shift for me, realizing that like I'm still a priority in my friend's life, but I'm not that instant priority of like, what are you doing? Like, I can't call them on Saturday that day and be like, what are you doing tonight? Like that just doesn't work anymore, simply because they have kids. And so that was really something.
How do you feel about that?
I learned a lot about myself. I really did. I learned that I really relied on like my friends to fill in that space that I didn't necessarily want to fill in by myself. And so when I think I told you this, like when my friends all started having kids, I started to have to be like, okay, who is Lauren without kids? You know what I mean? Like it was like this shift of like, okay, they have these new things going on in their life. And even though they still want to be my friend, they still hang out with me. Again, I'm not like that instant priority. I am a priority, but I'm not like that instant priority. And so I had to really figure out like who I was like without my friends, because I relied on them so much throughout my whole, I realized like, wow, I really relied on my friends for like self-development. It's flipped. Now I got to learn about myself,
Ooh.
And,
Okay. So hold on. Like awakening moments. And also I was setting that question up in a like messy way. So I was like, how do you feel about that? You're wanting to go out with your friends. They have kids now. They're not as accessible. What's that make you think? And you totally shifted that narrative. And I appreciate you for doing that, because I was like, okay, hold on. You talking about how you had to like, it flipped and you had to rely on yourself to self-discovery. And I was like, okay, I wasn't looking for all that, but that's what we needed in this moment. That's what we needed. And that's where the conversation actually probably is most obviously productive. And I 100% agree and acknowledge that idea of, we talk about this all the time, that the choice of, not having, children or, growing a family in that way has created an evolution, right? Like something we couldn't stop, right? Because it was developmentally something that we definitely could have, put money on a decade ago, 15 years ago. They're like, yeah, chances are a lot of our friends are probably going to be, creating families, establishing, those type of dynamics. So it's not surprising, but you definitely aren't prepared for like that switch that has to happen. So where, my identity now isn't, steeped in all the people that I know and the friendships that I have. My identity now has to be steeped in, what do I know to be true about myself? And so that's huge. I really thank you for sharing that, because I was not going there, but you brought us there. You brought us to that place. And
I'm just being honest, I'm just being honest. It really was a turning point where I was like, wow, I really have to like, I got to get a hobby or something.
Yeah. Like,
and this is where J-Lo's come.
Right. And then birthed from the whole like realization of like, hold on. Here you have it. Now we have J-Lo's combos. Yeah.
Which I think is great, which elevated our friendship. Like, I think prior to Jay and Lo's convos, I know that we were still in touch and we would talk every now and then, but like now we like every week we're talking and I love it.
Yeah. No, I think that absolutely is like, talk about an origin story. That's that for sure. And I 100% agree and it resonates. When I was thinking about this topic, it always, creates a space for like that reflection and kind of seeing the arc of how your relationships with your friends have, sometimes evolved and, just to be clear, sometimes they don't evolve. And the fact that they don't in and of itself is an evolution to some degree, right? Because what's the saying? Sometimes as you grow, friends go.
Yeah.
And I know that like I definitely have become aware of like my lean towards having, sometimes more robust or dense than other times, but like separation anxiety and like saying goodbye or closing off a chapter or closing something, it makes me feel a certain way. There's an emotional tug a little bit to where there's a little sadness, there's a little anxiousness around like, okay, what's coming then from that? And so I know that as I think about friendships that have shifted sometimes in ways that are like super robust and oh my gosh, look at all the things we're doing, and sharing in our life experiences together versus some that have just become like, okay, there was a season, kind of to what you're saying earlier, there was a season where we were running buddies. And when I say running buddies, not like physical, because who does that? No, kidding. But like, ripping and running, like going out to like places and you always have that person ready to go, that kind of changes into some ways, or it has in some relationships, some friendships that I have. And then there are some friendships that, you really start to think like, hold on, are we really authentically serving each other well? Are you pouring into my cup, am I pouring into your cup? And if not, like no harm, no foul. Let's stamp it as, you know what? The universe, God said, here's where we are in this moment. And we're going to be in a space together to navigate life, right? And rely on each other. But we now are different. And, different is not bad. Different is different.
Right.
And so lots of people that I know, and I hope they would say the same thing about me too, is like, yeah, we are friends in the general sense, right? But in terms of we don't at all exist in the same space in the same way that we did when we were friends, and so there's no harm, no foul in the sense of I wish everyone well, those individuals that have like shifted out of life, out of my life, or me out of theirs. But yeah, it's I think a honest, examination and realization of, yep, not everybody's gonna be lifetimers in terms of friend dynamics and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And going back to what you were saying with the whole like, I'm nervous if I let go of this friendship, you actually, when you get older, you'll be surprised how many people you just kind of stop talking to and it just kind of falls flat. Like you're so nervous about that friendship ending and then you kind of distance yourself from them. And then like, before you know it, it's a year later and you're like, oh, I guess it's cool. I guess it's okay. There's not this, I think when we're younger, again, there's like this pressure of, I want people to like me. I want to be social and all this stuff. And then when you get older, you start to realize like, that doesn't necessarily equate to your like inner happiness, like there's other things that you have to fill your cup up with and some, so you'll begin to realize that those friendships that you're nervous about ending per se, like they're probably thinking the same thing or not necessarily the same thing, but they're kind of like, what I've realized is no one is thinking about you the way you think that they're thinking about you.
Oh my gosh, that my like coming out story has that exact phrase. And Happy Pride Month as coming out. But like that idea of sometimes we can think about what someone else and project onto them, like how they're going to handle something, when in reality they're like, wait, hold on, I'm not really pausing that long to think about this because I got other stuff I got to be worried about. That, much bigger fish to fry in that regard. So totally resonates when you say that. In thinking about evolution and how friendships, you know, change and shift and so on and so forth. Something that I definitely appreciated from thinking about this and now engaging in this conversation with you is the beauty in how I, you know, approach and just enter dynamics around the things I would sweat versus the things that I don't anymore. You know, and that evolutionary thing I think is steeped in realization of self, right? And then
Yeah.
but also self in relationships to other people and how other people enter space and the space they take up. I think that I'm now able to approach things from the place of based off of, you know, a lot of historical context with different friends and how they've moved and ebbed and flowed over time, but acknowledging, you remember Sarah Grindstaff? You know, Sarah Grindstaff, G Staff.
G-Staff,
What up? Shout out to Sarah.
We bring her up
you're hearing
on like so many
Right.
episodes.
Right, because she was like the sage, like Yoda of Elmhurst University now.
For sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
yeah,
like,
university now.
yeah, girl, I remember one time we were driving back. She was she would drive me back often, or I don't think she rode with me, but I rode with her sometimes back to St. Louis. We both are from St. Louis and over breaks and stuff. She was telling me about some irrequited loves. You know, I had a lot of those in college, and it was just like saying, like, Jay, stop focusing on like what is happening, or stop focusing on what's not happening, but focus on what is. As you're like definitive, like we spend a lot of time on what, you know, we want versus like acknowledging what is, you know.
Yeah.
And I think with friendships, I'm able to do that now to where like not what do I want out of a friend, but like what is this friend doing? And is this friend doing the thing that, and not that you have to do in terms of like actioning, like I take, but like doing in terms of how do they pour in to me reciprocally and me pour into them, right? So do they send me messages to say, hey, I hope your day goes well? Or, you know, hey, following up on, you know, you're talking about this, just how's it going? Thinking about you, sending some, you know, positive vibes or whatever. Those type of actions, those small, like nuanced, very subtle things, I think really that mean a lot to me in terms of how people, baseline example is, are you the one picking up the phone calling, or do you pick up the phone when someone calls you sometimes? You know, and so some people might think that that is like, okay, that's not really a good whatever, but I do think that everyone does what they want to do, and everyone is talking to someone. And so it's like, you know, like you think about the actions, it's like, I don't think that you're not talking to anyone, because we live in a society where like, yeah, you're talking to people, you're choosing to talk to the people you want to. And if you're not talking to people, that is an indicator that like maybe our friendship is shifted in a way that's different. You know, like you make space and time for the things that are like important to you, you know.
And I think now that we're older too, I think you can kind of call bullshit sometimes, like when your friends are, well, the people that are your friends, and you're like, like I feel like I am more aware of that. Whereas when I was younger, I would acknowledge those like little annoying toxic behaviors kind of a thing, but I was still like, well, they're my friend, and I would just like let it ride, you know. But now I'm just kind of like, nah, you know, like I don't want to, again, I'm not, to what you're saying is like, what are we getting out of this? Like, you're just sending me this text to make yourself feel good. Like you're not really being reciprocal here. Like you're just saving face. I feel like I can pick up on that a little bit more now that I'm older. Whereas before I was like, yeah, it's fine, but we're fine. Now I'm like, no, you're doing this because you feel bad and you just want to like save face. And sometimes like I just don't engage. Again, I don't engage because I'm just kind of like, I don't need that. I don't need that kind of energy or that kind of space. Like, I don't know. But like I do feel like when you're older, you can kind of be like, what's your intention here? You know, like
I love it, and I always think about this is definitely like work conditioning me, and I'm like, but in this way, it's good aspect of like how work can sometimes bleed into like personal lives and stuff. But like thinking in headlines, right, and just making a headline of how do you encompass, like, what are your words about like friendships and their evolution, like the evolutionary point of view process around friendships. For me, I guess the headline that I would have from this conversation is this idea of being okay with doing less better,
Yeah.
in the sense of you can have a small group of people that like are your people, and just really be present and really be able to like lean in and do that dance, reciprocal dance. And so there's a lot of joy in that, and there's a lot of I think beauty in that evolutionary process. But I would not be able to have these people in my circle today if I wouldn't have had those experiences that were meaningful in that moment and purposeful and necessary in that moment, years past, to give me that, like, that, I don't know, that idea of what blue sky could look like. And I feel like, people who are in my circle now, it's like, yeah. I'm rambling. One last thing here before I throw it over to you to like give your closing headlines and stuff around. Sometimes I know I was, when I think about evolution, friendships, the loudness of, and I've been saying this in conversations recently, the loudness of a thing, we orient, I think, to what's loud. Where either it's a really, really great friendship, or it's a really, really awful, like, help me problem solve this thing, but we don't give a lot of like space for the in-between. And I think that the in-between, actually, that sweet spot is like, I feel very much like my friendship dynamics now are like very middle of the road. And Brandon sometimes uses, Brandon too, but he uses like this terminology to kind of describe me as being like blue, like a color blue, like very middle of the road and kind of constant. And that's where I think my friendships are, where before it was either like a lot of chaotic energy that's like, we're having fun, we're doing this, but like stand up to the sun. This is years ago. Stand up to the sun rises, whatever. Hey, no way now. I'm like, I'm tired, and that's
your
not
day
fun.
is ruined. You're like, I'm just ruining the next day.
Yeah, I'm like, no, not now. Those friends, they flown the coop. Those I grow, they go. And then also on the other end, like if it's nothing. So I think that middle of the road is like that blue, and my friendships are there now, which I think is just amazing. And I really like how it's evolved. What about you? Headlines, final thoughts?
I think very similar to what you were saying. I think that if you have a really good friendship with someone, you don't necessarily need to, like, I'm at the point where like, I don't need to call my friends every single day, because I've learned to self-regulate. I have other resources where I can calm down. I don't necessarily need someone to talk to every day. So now that I'm older, it's kind of like I respect people's spaces, like in their life, and like where I fit into those spaces. And as long as you respect me and we have a good vibe going on, like we don't need to be talking every single day. Like I still consider those people really good friends, like those friends where you don't really talk to them, and then when you hang out with them, you're like, man, we haven't even skipped a beat. Like that's where I would like to be. I don't want to have this like stress of like, well, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to them in like 3 months and I feel like they're mad at me. Like I don't need those types of relationships. So
I love the hand gestures. You're like, no.
I don't need those.
Me with those type of friendships.
Yeah, I just like I don't need that type of support anymore. So like for me, I guess my headline is just be present. You don't need to be like, I know this sounds weird, but you don't have to be like in my life all this time, like up in my butt, like all the time. Like you don't need to be like that. Like as long as you're in my life and we have good vibes and we're hanging out, that's fine. If I don't talk to you for 2 months, it doesn't mean I don't like you. It's just I have my space, you have your space, and respect each other's space, but like also keep in touch,
Yeah. And that is a word. It's a nice way to pin the conversation, because that sounds like maturity. How we like mature over time. It's like that's an evolutionary process.
Yeah.
Right. And so some stuff is like, no, I got you. We good.
Right.
We good.
Yeah.
You gotta be all we need to face all the time.
Right.
Yeah. So that makes sense. I totally resonates. It's like, wow, you in my head right now or what? You're always in my head.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
yeah, no. Well, my friend, as always, it is great to have these conversations with you, to be thinking about things. Of course, we, stay in our reflective bag all the time. And so great conversing today. We will be back not next week, but the week after. And do you want me to tee up, kind of just give a little bit of a headline of what that conversation is going to look like, or are you?
Yeah, because I'm like scrolling. I'm like, what are we doing?
Okay, no, yeah, totally fine. And you can add some things, obviously, to close us out here. But next episode, guys, not next week, but the following week, every 2 weeks, that's how we're going to be doing the format this go around. We are going to be talking. We kind of mentioned a little bit today about some friends that we have now in our lives that like aren't as accessible, and they're not as accessible because they got a little person or multiple little people that absolutely need and require their time and their attention and their love. So what we're going to be talking about is the evolution of parenting. Like, what was it once? What is it now? How does it impact how we move and shape? But just the evolutionary process, our point of view on the evolution of parenting.
Exactly. Fully acknowledge that we are not parents. Yes.
Thank you for the disclaimer. We are not parents.
We're not parents.
You know, and so anything that we say,
it's just an opinion. It's just a POV.
You know, POV. Exactly. So curious to hear from you all, your POV on this, you know, specific topic around the evolution of friendship, but also as we prepare for that, you know, upcoming episode, what are your thoughts on parenting, the evolution of parenting? What's your point of view?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. I'm excited as well. So thank you all so much. Feel free to interact with us on our LinkedIn, not LinkedIn. Why I say LinkedIn? The whole rundown of like my whole like resume, electronic resume, but Instagram.
Yeah.
And then if you really want to be a boss, follow that link on our Instagram to get connected to our YouTube, which we don't use. But
we have all of our old episodes there. Like if you want to take a gander, go ahead.
Do your thing, a gander. And on that note, we will talk soon.
Bye.